Section86.com. We're changing the world of podcasting one show at a time.
86 Productions.
Take what you wanna take. Don't leave me here. Lasting leap years ever your fear of the one and only love.
Hello and welcome to Off the Mark, the best podcast for the most in-depth insight and analysis into the world of professional wrestling. On today's show, we have Aaron, Roger, and Doug to join Andrew as we discuss the year-end review of all things wrestling. So, Aaron, what do we do? This is the final show that we do every year, and what do we talk about every year on the show?
Yeah, so this is the end of the year awards, where we talk about everything that had gone on in the world of professional wrestling, not just WWE. We also cover a little bit of TNA, Ring of Honor, New Japan, and everything in between. And we give our awards for things such as Best Match, Wrestler of the Year, newcomers, underrated wrestlers, things of that nature. And for specific ones, I'll add little factoids along with them.
All right. So, let's just get right into it. So, who is the newcomer of the year for you, Roger?
Well, for me, I don't really think there were a whole lot of people who made an impact who were new on the scene. So I'm going to go with a guy who, in my opinion, tore it up in NXT. He made a big splash at TakeOver Brooklyn 3. And you may know him as Adam Cole, baby.
That's a good one. Actually, that was my guy who I thought was going to come in. Is going to be the newcomer of the year as well. There's no way I can change that. I think he's definitely the newcomer of the year. So,
And what about for Doug?
Doug had a toss up. Doug actually
Doug
had
split.
Both Aleister Black / Adam Cole, and I think that's a good one as well.
Yeah, for me, and to kind of clarify a little bit, because I know some people are probably saying, well, Adam Cole's been around for a long time. And the thing for the newcomer of the year, it's meant to be for somebody who maybe wasn't on their radar as much. And so, for example, like Adam Cole, I knew of Adam Cole for a few years, but he didn't make as big of an impact for the major scene or for a lot of other people until he came to WWE. And obviously this year he's been fantastic. For me, somebody that I was very unaware of, though, until he came around to Ring of Honor, was Marty Scurll. And that was my guy, the villain, who I think was, I think has been one of the best newcomers, have done a lot so far this year. So Marty Scurll is my newcomer of the year.
Oh, that's a good one. I will have to say, yeah, good job on that. The next thing that we have is Video of the Year. And I'll go with Doug first because he picked Southpaw Wrestling as what he thought was the video of the year. And Aaron, what do you have for video of the year?
So for me, and the video of the year originally was DVD of the year, and of course we've come a long way since starting to do this. And the video of the year is meant to be the video that is a video that is shown. So for example, like if Jericho had one out one year, this previous year we expanded a little bit more. So we included the Cruiserweight Classic on there and a few other shows that actually WWE had put out. For me, though, the ESPN 30 for 30 on Ric Flair was something that you had to see. It really talked about Ric Flair's life in such a way that was it was so great. I absolutely loved it, and I recommend any wrestling fan to see it. So the Ric Flair ESPN 30 for 30.
All right, Roger, what do you think the video of the year was?
For me, I'm going to take the Usos' advice and keep it PG. I'm not going to get all rated R like my boy Xavier Woods. So I'm going to go with the video, in my opinion, that made their careers. And it's the Fashion Files. That made Breezango. That kind of put them on the map. That made Breeze and Fandango must-see TV every week on SmackDown. Oftentimes, it was the most entertaining part of SmackDown. So I'm definitely going to say the Fashion Files are the video of the year.
The Fashion Files, that's a good one. Definitely a good one. For video of the year, I actually, this is the one that I couldn't think of anything. But the closest one I could think of actually was the Ric Flair 30 for 30, which is probably, hands down, was one of the best things that they put out in a long time. So I'm very happy that was put out. Good job by ESPN. So the next thing we have is Fallen from Grace. And this is one basically where the wrestler has just, they were on top and now they're not. So, Aaron, who is your Fallen from Grace wrestler?
This was actually one of the tougher ones, and I was going through trying to figure out who I thought had fallen the hardest. And I'm sure that, Doug or Roger or you are going to say something like, oh, yeah, it has to be that person. That person fell incredibly far, incredibly hard. But even though, to me, the last 2 weeks have been really, really good, to me, Dolph Ziggler is my fallen from grace. If you look at the 11 and a half months where he was treated so poorly, Dolph Ziggler is the person I felt had fallen the farthest.
And Roger, who do you think was the Fallen from Grace wrestler this year?
So when I look at Fall for Grace, I like to compare it to the previous year. Oftentimes, I take a look at the WrestleMania card and see who was really kind of, I guess, their star was shining the brightest. And really, there's only one person, in my opinion, who went from the future of their respective division to basically an afterthought, to the point where I don't think they're going to be in the card this year. And that's Bayley. Bayley was the women's champion. She walked out of WrestleMania 33 the women's champion. I don't think anyone would be surprised if she was left off the WrestleMania 34 card. She was turned into a jobber by Alexa Bliss. She takes pinfalls all the time in random tag team matches. She is a complete non-factor in the division at this point. I don't think anyone thinks she's going to win the Women's Royal Rumble. Her star has fallen about as bad as Paige has.
And and also Doug had the same thing. He picked Bayley as well, and I actually had to pick Bayley as well because I don't know what they did with her. All of a sudden, it's like they lost faith in her, which is unbelievable. Just one of those wrestlers that, like when you see her wrestle, you're like, wow, that's great. She can put on a match, but then they're like, we're not going to have you do that, even though you're probably the closest type of John Cena in the women's division, because everyone wants to, have you there, but for their Make-A-Wish, but it's like they don't know what they're doing. That's the sad part with her. So I hope that next year she's one of the people that does something really well. But the next person, the most underrated superstar of the year, I pick him because I think that no one gives him love, and I'm just gonna say The Miz. I think he's the most underrated superstar out there right now. And Roger, who do you have for that?
Miz is not a bad choice, though. I think it's kind of one of those things where if someone is constantly underrated, are they still underrated anymore? If everyone keeps calling them underrated, don't they, at a certain point, you kind of just realize how good they are. And I think we've accepted that Miz is one of the better characters. This one was a little bit tough for me because I think there's a lot of guys and a lot of gals even on the roster. Drew Gulak, Velveteen Dream, Chad Gable, those are all guys who I had as underrated. But to me, I went with someone who I think should be at the top of their division, someone who, should probably be someone who is built around, and that's Becky Lynch. Her and Charlotte are by far the two best people on SmackDown for the women's division. And Becky Lynch, to me, is an afterthought. And that shouldn't happen. Like, she is one of the 4 horsewomen. She's fantastic in the ring. I think she's severely underrated.
And Aaron, who do you have?
I'm actually going to go with my guy from last year still. I'm going to say he's still underrated. Very similar to you. You also picked The Miz last year, which, I agree. He is underrated. But I'm going to go with Ty Dillinger again. Ty Dillinger is somebody who I believe is still criminally underrated. He is not on every show. He is sometimes once a month. We see him on the shows. And he is an afterthought. He is somebody who they're like, oh, yeah, I guess, he's still there. And I feel like they're not doing as much with him as they could. I'm not saying give him a title. I'm saying give him a storyline. And they're not doing that. And people love chanting 10, 10, 10. So Ty Dillinger is mine.
It's like they don't know how to work with him. It's sad. And then Doug picked Rusev of all people. Wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rusev. He picked Rusev, which is a good one too.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear him defend that one because I wouldn't say for the entire year, but recently, yes, he has been one of those guys. The next thing that we have is the biggest disappointment, and I'm going to agree with, and Doug put Jinder as champion, and I'm going to say the same thing because that was the most disappointing thing this year. Roger, what was the most disappointing thing this year for you?
Do I really need to answer this? Is there anything that could potentially be more disappointing than the biggest piece of garbage to ever cross the WWE's path, holding their most prestigious championship and killing their main event scene for a good 6 months? Now, I will say this. There were some other things that were unbelievably disappointing. Undertaker's last match being he went out on a whimper against Roman Reigns in a bad match at WrestleMania. The Shield's return was a joke and is basically over thanks to Ambrose's return and failed to be any sort of impactful moment at all. Baron Corbin's cash-in, my God, did that suck? And now granted, I thought that under Jinder being the champion, but that was unbelievably disappointing. But having said all of that, there is nothing more disappointing than seeing how hot SmackDown was around the Elimination Chamber time with their main event scene, and then watching Jinder Mahal after the House of Horrors match, which was terrible, and not even be the worst thing that SmackDown did in the main event because Jinder Mahal won the championship. That is by far the biggest disappointment of the decade.
Jinder.
I think that's I think the first time we ever swept something.
Probably for this category in particular, it's definitely the first time. Because I mean that's unexpected. But I mean, Roger he made excellent points. There's a lot of other terrible things that if Jinder was not champion, there are a lot of things we could say. And what's funny is I went back through, about 6 or 7 months into the year, I went through and I actually created the list and filled out my form. And then I went back today and went back through to look at it. And the vast majority of them stayed the same, 7 months in, which is funny. And I had Jinder as champion at that time. So I was
my gosh.
Jinder being champion. He was 3 months into his reign, but it was still pretty terrible.
Yeah, so the oh my god moment of the year is when, for Doug, he picked Jinder as champion. And Roger, what was your OMG moment of the year?
So I try to think of the OMG moment as a positive. So I'm disqualifying Jinder for that because I just want to enjoy this. Like, I was just disgusted. There were, I guess, 3 moments for me. Braun, his kind of destruction path that he carved over Roman, whether it was throwing the chair or flipping the ambulance, just that whole 2 to 3 months was just awesome. Like, I really enjoyed his rise to prominence. The announcement of War Games returning, I thought that was really awesome for the first time in 20 years to see War Games again. It's not something I think we ever expected to see in the WWE. Even if it was on NXT, it was really awesome. But to me, the biggest moment of the year was something that you and I predicted at WrestleMania, and it was something that was awesome to see, and that was the Hardys coming back, because we didn't necessarily know if we'd get to see Broken Matt in WWE, and we wondered how that would work on a big stage, and now we're getting to see it. And the Hardys came back, they had a fun little ladder match, they had a couple great matches. Like, that to me, I'd say is probably my number one OMG moment.
And for me, actually, I had it as a tie, actually, and you talked about both of them. One was War Games, but the first one was the Hardy Boys, because that's what I had so far. And then when War Games happened, it was like, oh my gosh. And then that match itself was great. It wasn't a crappy match. They did a great job. All those wrestlers knew what to do. And that was something I was not expecting. So I was very happy about that. I'm disappointed they didn't have the top on the cage, but overall, those 2 things, I can't differentiate which one was better.
You gotta pick one.
Damn it. Well, I'll just say War Games, even though I think the Hardys was probably a little bit better, but I gotta throw War Games out there because it was something that we did not expect, and it was awesome just to see that.
And so for me, very similar. The OMG moment is supposed to be like, oh my god, either a positive or a negative, really, and that's why Doug picking Jinder. I understand. It's like, oh my god, are they doing this? Whereas for Roger, it's like, oh my god, it's the Hardys. And similarly to me, my OMG moment was actually the fact that we got to see Samoa Joe take on Brock Lesnar. This is something that, years ago we talked about. Like, it'd be really cool, like, to see somebody like Samoa Joe in the ring with like a Brock Lesnar. Like those 2 people going at it. And their match was, I thought, fantastic. I thought it was actually one of the better matches this year. It was short, but it did what it was supposed to do. And so to me, that was my oh my god moment, that I'm actually able to see this.
And next thing we have is actually wrestling industry news. And, I'm just curious, what did you pick, Aaron, for the wrestling industry news this year?
Yeah, so wrestling industry news is something that is going through the world of professional wrestling. For example, we had the brand extension one year. This year, it actually wouldn't be surprising if somebody picks the XFL, because that's actually industry news. That's going to affect the world of professional wrestling, even though it's a different sport. For me, though, the thing that I thought was kind of shocking is the 6-star and the 6.25-star match. That was the wrestling industry news of the year, because once you hear the 6-star match, you're like, oh my goodness, like 5 stars is the biggest thing. So what is the 6-star match? And then you watch and you're like, oh, that was really good. And then you hear a 6.25 star and you're like, really that this is what it is. So it's actually a little bit of a down note, but not a total down note. But to me, wrestling industry news, 6-star match.
Really?
6-star matches, I should say. Yep.
6-star matches?
Yep.
All right. And Roger, what do you have?
That I just chalk it up to Meltzer being an idiot. Like, I like the guy in the sense of he's a knowledgeable guy, but It's like I've said before, you can't get 101 speed rating in Madden. You can't give 110%. You can't be 6 out of 5 stars. Like, stop being dumb. Just call it a 5-star match and it is what it is. As far as news, I'm going to go completely outside of WWE on this one. And I think there were 2, and they're both NJPW. The one that I have as the runner-up is their U.S. tournament, because I think them coming to the United States and not necessarily being competition for WWE, because I don't think that's realistic, but I think an alternative to WWE is far more realistic and a different style, and they present things and just, kind of exposing North America, I guess, to a different style of wrestling that isn't ROH indie. Like, NJPW is a legitimate company. It's very different wrestlers. A lot of good guys got exposure. But the biggest news is Chris Jericho showing up for Wrestle Kingdom. That is massive. To get a WWE star who was just recently on WrestleMania, who was in a U.S. Championship match only a few months ago, to be fighting Kenny Omega at Wrestle Kingdom, that's massive. Like, that is the type of thing that can make NJPW really take off in the United States. So I think that's huge.
And what did Doug have?
For his news, Doug had the NJPW invasion of the U.S. So the U.S. Championship, Kenny Omega winning, and I know he's obviously a big NJPW fan, and kind of just their entire global expansion. That was his biggest news of the year.
And for my biggest news is actually I wanted to call it the Ring of Honor invasion, because we've had so many Ring of Honor stars come to NXT recently, and they've been all tearing it up. Of course, Adam Cole's one of them, and we had Red Dragon, of course. They came in. Roderick Strong's been in here for a little bit longer, but I almost can't put him in that same boat, because they've done a cool storyline with it, and interesting to see how it's going to end. And I think that's going to end actually at a Takeover Royal Rumble, Takeover Philadelphia, I think is what they're going to call it. So that I'm actually looking forward to. But yeah, overall, I think that is the biggest thing is Ring of Honor invades NXT. Of course, Chris Jericho. That's the other thing too. Roger, that's a great point. That would be my very close second, and it's almost a toss up at that point. But yeah, I think that's exactly what's going on. So, worst feud, Aaron, who is the worst feud? Because I already know what it's going to be. I'm just going to say Jinder Mahal versus anyone. So I'm curious on what yours is.
So a few years back, we've done the worst feud. And I remember one year, Andy and I both picked, I think it was Sheamus versus anybody, that's what we had done. And we kind of kept that theme going. I think Roman versus anybody won it 1 year. You mentioned, so Jinder versus anybody is yours. I think that might be Rogers and Doug's too. Mine, though, actually, like I said, I wrote this about 6 months ago and it stayed the same. And it was Orton versus Wyatt. It was stupid. The turn was unnecessary. Their match at WrestleMania was terrible. And their House of Hardcore or House of Horror, whatever it was, match was atrocious. That was one of those where I saw and I was just like, what are you doing? You are not the Broken Hardys. You can't do this type of stuff and expect people to like it. It was dumb. And even I get they're taking a chance. I understand that. The chance didn't work. And they should have tested this out. It did not work. So to me, Orton Wyatt was the worst.
And Roger, what do you have?
I also had Orton Wyatt up there. It wasn't the worst one, but I had it on there because, that was everything that Aaron said. It was unbelievably stupid. So this, and I'm going to tell you, this is how bad I think my actual feud of the year was. I have Jinder versus Entertainment as my runner-up for worst feud of the year. Ooh. And I hate Jinder. I've made that clear on multiple occasions. But this feud was so bad that it killed, in my opinion, not only one of your shining stars, but it killed your entire division. Alexa versus Bayley. That was unbelievably trash. That basically turned Bayley from a legitimate competitor who was winning at WrestleMania to I'm too nice to use a hardcore weapon in a hardcore match. It killed all of Bayley's momentum. It made Alexa, unfortunately, one of the more boring champions. It had the worst segment I've ever seen. That This Is Your Life with Alexa and Bayley was horrible. It made fun of her for watching wrestling back in the day. That's how stupid this writing was. Is that, you watched Raw back in the day, nerd. Except for we're watching Raw right now, you idiot. It was terrible. It was unbelievably terrible. Whoever wrote that should have been fired. I feel bad for Alexa for having to deliver those lines. That feud sucked, and everybody is worse for having it. The fans are worse for it. Raw's worse for it. Alexa's worse for it. And Bayley is the worst for it.
And what did Doug have?
Doug, if I'm correct, had Jinder versus anyone, but especially Nakamura. So he basically said Jinder was literally the worst feud, but especially when facing Shinsuke. Because to be fair, Jinder's feuds were terrible. They were they were. Did anything of note happen besides Orton trying to kill the Singh brothers? Like, I can't remember one memorable moment that didn't involve Orton trying to murder the Singhs.
Oh gosh, that's right. Because he threw the one on the announcer table, and he was like, "Ooh," like,
Yeah, and that was hilarious. But the other, I mean, it was garbage. It was so bad. It was gender. He sucked.
So going from the worst to the best, Roger, who was your feud of the year?
So this one was a little bit tougher. Omega versus Okada. You have to throw that in there. I just think that has to be discussed. Not because they had the best feud, but when you have 3 matches of that caliber in a 6 to 7 month span, that's a good trilogy right there. One of the feuds that I really loved, and it was one of my favorite feuds of the year, Aleister Black versus Velveteen Dream. That was so fun. That entire little 2-month program that they had on NXT was great. It led to a fantastic match. In my opinion, the best match of the Survivor Series weekend was those two. So that feud was fantastic. Well done, NXT. But to me, on this one, it's not easy, but this is the one that I think really stood out above the rest. New Day versus the Usos. They were just unbelievably great. I mean, 2 of their matches were, elite caliber. I loved it. It was a little bit too much, but it was still very, very good. It wasn't Charlotte versus Sasha where it just took forever. Those two, in my opinion, they elevated SmackDown's tag division as much as Alexa and Bayley destroyed Raw's women's division. Like, they put it on a whole new level where I'm just curious to see what they can continue to do going forward.
And Doug has Omega versus Okada is what he picked for that, actually. So he thinks that is definitely a feud of the year. And in this case, usually I'm not a huge NJPW fan, but those matches, hands down, were one of the best of the year. And Roger, I do agree with you. Velveteen Dream and Aleister Black need to be mentioned as well, because that feud and then the match that happened, like that match I thought was going to suck, and then it, like, all of a sudden you're like, oh wow, that was really good. So, but yeah, we got to throw that out there. So Aaron, what is yours?
So you're saying Omega Okada?
I'm definitely saying Omega Okada.
I agree, and my thought on it is because of the fact that it was so long and drawn out. And to Roger's point, New Day Usos, great feud, but you had like 4 or 5 matches in like a month. And if WWE was smart and they drew that out to like 7 months, I would have said, "Oh my god, like tag team, like this is feud of the year. These are the tag teams of the year. This is everything that it should be wrestling." And while it was good, to me, Omega Okada, that trilogy in a span of like 7 months, feud of the year.
Yeah. The next one we have is Woman of the Year, and I'm just gonna say that I think Asuka is Woman of the Year. I don't think anyone's up there. So, and Roger, who do you have for Woman of the Year?
Same woman I had last year, Asuka. Really, the only other person who could be qualified for this was Kairi Sane, because the main roster women disappointed, and not necessarily because of anything that they did outside of maybe that Alexa skit that was garbage, but the feuds weren't good. The matches were okay. They were rushed. They didn't really get the attention they deserved. Charlotte had a quality end to her year, but Asuka was consistently good all the way through. Kairi Sane had that fun tournament run, but to me, it's Asuka hands down, and 2 years running, and I don't think anyone was particularly close.
All right, and Aaron.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Asuka. To be honest, I actually had Bayley originally, or not Bayley. I actually had Alexa Bliss originally until the Bayley stuff, and that was the thing that actually hurt Alexa Bliss, because when you think about it, Raw Women's Champion, SmackDown Women's Champion, she had a really good run, but Asuka, it was just a little bit better.
And in this case, Doug had Kairi Sane. Next thing we have actually right now is the Tag Team of the Year. And to me, it's between 2 people. It's between the Usos and New Day. And if I had to pick something, I'm definitely going to have to pick the New Day in this case, because their matches were great. And I think the Usos, they took it up a notch that I was surprised. And I didn't think they would be that over. But New Day, every time they come out, it's just so fun. Like, I enjoy every segment that they're in, and I can't think of a bad one they've had as well. So they are my Tag Team of the Year. Aaron?
I'm going with Doug on this. We both had the Usos. I think they had the best year of a tag team, and I thought that they were absolutely phenomenal. I cannot wait to see what else they do for this year, because I think that they have some pretty good opponents that they really haven't had the ability to touch. I just hope that they don't, Charlotte and Sasha Banks it.
Oh, wow. Roger?
Make three of us, because I also had Usos. New Day was fantastic. NXT, unfortunately, they kind of cut that in half. Revival got hurt, or they'd probably be in this discussion because know how good they are. But it was the Usos. I mean, I just really thought they turned it up to another level, and they really revitalized their career. And when I say they were great, I don't just mean their series with New Day. I mean their series with American Alpha. I mean, going all the way from the start of the year, those series of matches were good. And the Usos, to me, they were head and shoulders above everyone the same way I felt the Revival were head and shoulders above everyone the previous year. So I'm going with the Usos.
All right. So who do you think what was the match of the year for you then?
So match of the year was probably the hardest one for me, because I had maybe 2 to 3 matches that were all 5-star quality. Styles versus Cena was very good. Like, I'm not, even though I didn't particularly love the result, I even said that back when we did the Rumble, I didn't hate it. But I did like their SummerSlam match just a tad bit better. Pete Dunne versus Tyler Bate was great. Like, that match was outstanding. And in any other year, it's probably the match of the year. But let's just be honest. It's Omega versus Okada. And you can pick which one you want, whether it's 1 or 2. They were great. I think I prefer 2 because I think it's a little bit shorter, 45 as opposed to like 60 minutes or something like that. 60 is just a tad bit too long. Is it the reverse? Yeah. 2 is 60. They went to a draw, and it would be 1, the one I prefer. Because 60 minutes is just too long for me. But yeah, they raised the bar. And as I've said many times, a match at WrestleMania, in this case Wrestle Kingdom, is a tiebreaker. It means more than a match at NXT TakeOver Chicago, which is still a big event, but it's not your premier event in the main event. So I go with Omega versus Okada.
I'm on board with Roger. I'm picking the first one. I know Doug, he actually picked the second one, and it's all for the same reasons. So
there's so many, I think, this year. I enjoyed Aleister Black versus Velveteen Dream. That was more of the surprise match. I really liked DIY versus Authors of Pain. DIY, sorry. My bad.
Do yourself it.
Yeah.
It's the Yoda speak.
But yeah, I thought that was a great match. But and there's multiple other matches too, like AJ Styles versus anyone, pretty much, even gender, I have to say. But when it all comes down to it, it's just Okada versus Omega. I mean, that was it. It was hands. I mean, the pacing was perfect.
Which one are you picking? There were 3. So
I think I liked the first one. I think the most because I was shocked that Omega could put on that match. I think that's probably my number one. I think it was more because it was the first one. I look at, there's other matches that I've seen where like they have a trilogy of matches and it always ends up being the first one because it's not the outcome I want to have for the final one. Cause I'm like, I want both these guys to continue to fight, but then there's a point where like, oh crap, like we have to end it eventually. Kind of like what, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, we had to see so many of those matches and they finally had to end it. Now they're best friends again. But yeah.
Wrestler of the year, Andy, who did you pick?
I'm still debating in my head. I can tell you who I wanted to be Wrestler of the Year, but well, we'll just go. Doug picked Omega in this case, and Roger, who'd you have for Wrestler of the Year?
Another tough one. That was toughest match of the year. Just a couple of people I want to shout out. Cody Rhodes was absolutely fantastic this year. Really established himself as a main event quality talent. And then of course I have the duo that had my match of the year, Omega and Okada. They were both fantastic. Both of them, I have zero issues with them being Wrestler of the Year. But to me, the guy who was the Wrestler of the Year is the same guy who was the Wrestler of the Year last year. It didn't matter who you gave him, whether it was old Shane McMahon, whether it was garbage Jinder Mahal. He could pull out a classic whenever you need him to, and it's AJ Styles. And he was the Wrestler of the Year last year. And to me, what solidified this was when they needed something to be fixed, whether it was, hey, our card's going down the tubes because everybody's got a viral infection. Hey, AJ, just come wrestle Finn Balor out of nowhere and go give us a quality match. Hey, AJ, Jinder sucks so bad that we don't want to waste Brock Lesnar on him. Go wrestle Brock Lesnar and put on a fantastic match at Survivor Series. Hey, AJ, Jinder's trying to kill our main event scene. Can you just go be the champion now? He got 2 good matches out of Jinder. That's more good matches out of Jinder than anyone combined over the last entirety of his career. AJ Styles is the Wrestler of the Year. Hands down.
And in this case, I completely agree. I was actually just telling Aaron, because I wasn't sure if I wanted to pick Omega, but then I started thinking about it. Omega had a great feud, but he didn't have to. He had to do so many. AJ Styles he had to deal with so many crappy matches, and they're like, "Hey, we need you to put on a 5-star match against Jinder, so it's going to be more like a 3-star match." Okay, and then it's like and Roger, you've said it before. he could take one of us in the ring, and somehow, some way, he would get at least a 2-star match out of it. We'd actually probably look better than Jinder does in the ring.
Yeah, absolutely. And AJ Styles, look, absolutely. To me, he is my WWE Wrestler of the Year, like far above like everybody else. I actually picked Okada, and the reason I picked Okada was I agree with your guys' points on AJ. Although I'm going with Okada for the reverse, which is that he had good opponents, and they allowed him to do lots of things in the ring that normally in WWE AJ probably wasn't able to do. Like AJ could probably have like really great matches with Jinder. Honestly, like even though we give Jinder a lot of crap, there's hindrance that is there. They are hindering the Jinder is what's going on because they have to wrestle a certain style, and Okada doesn't have to. Doug actually picked Omega, and for probably very similar reasons. The reason I picked Okada though was because he had those matches. He didn't have to go and cut promos. He told the story in the ring, and everybody said, okay, you have to see the Okada Omega, Okada Cody, Okada Shibata. You have to see all of these matches and all of them had Okada in there. And with AJ, 100% agree. You need to see AJ Cena. You need to see AJ Brock. But to me, it was Okada just got a little bit more because he was able to have slightly better matches.
Really?
Yeah, Okada for me, Omega for Doug. Like I said, I have no problem with your guys' picks. AJ was fantastic.
And I mean, I agree with that too, right? If you have, in my opinion, the best match of the year, it's not like Omega versus or Okada aren't worthy of it. Like you had 3 pretty worthy contenders. It was just, to me, I thought AJ made a meal out of far less ingredients because we know if you give him Shinsuke Nakamura, what he can do.
And
but when he took Shane McMahon to make probably the best match of the night at WrestleMania, that's not easy to do.
That is true. But that's why I think we should actually bring someone on to defend their pick of Wrestler of the Year. So, Doug, your Wrestler of the Year, both Roger and I picked AJ Styles. Aaron picked Okada. How is Omega? How do you define that he is the Wrestler of the Year?
With going with Omega as the Wrestler of the Year, it's just one of those things. I think Okada may be in Japan the biggest thing, but Omega is worldwide, and every match that Omega was in or anything like that, it always seemed like Omega was being like, it was in the news here in America. It was here, and it was in the news in Japan. It was in the news all over the world. The things that Omega has done with Ring of Honor, the tours that he's been around the United States, everything that he's doing is going global. Whereas Okada seems to be just in Japan.
Okay, that's actually he made a better point. So you're wrong. Just letting you know that, Aaron.
My
You're
opinion
wrong.
is wrong.
You're wrong.
I mean, look at the news. Look at the news of just even the announcement of Omega versus Alpha and Chris Jericho, and how big that went wide. That seems like a bigger match right now, at least in my opinion, than Okada Naito, which I think will still be one of the top tier matches and possibly another match of the year candidate. But so is also the idea of Omega versus Y2J.
All right. Yeah. And speaking of that, Wrestle Kingdom is coming up here shortly. And can't wait for that. So let's thank our sponsor, HostGator. Are you a blogger or podcaster, or are you just not happy with your web hosts? You need to check out HostGator.com. You're going to find web hosting made easy and affordable. HostGator offers unlimited disk space, unlimited bandwidth, one-click service, also the free stable and hands-on the best control panel out there. Stop by today, try a free demo to see how easy it is. And if you use a special coupon code, Off the Mark, you're going to save 25% off your web hosting packages. So what do you got to lose? Check out HostGator.com and take a bite out of your web hosting costs. Also, make sure you check out Section 86's Off the Mark page to click on the banner at the top to save big on items from WWEshop.com. Aaron, let's talk about predictions from last year. We had some very interesting ones, and we limited it to 2 last year. So one thing, the first thing Doug picked was it's Undertaker's last year. Was it, Doug? Was Taker's last year?
So far, it seems that way. Only the future will tell. But I do not see him wrestling anymore still. So I feel pretty confident that is a good good prediction. I think it was a softball one, but only time will tell if that's truly his final year.
Well, and to just kind of run through some of these quickly. Roger said SmackDown was going to overtake Raw in the ratings, which it did. I said that TNA was going to go out of business, which they did. Andy, you said 205 Live would be on TV, and they weren't.
Unfortunately.
Ty Dillinger debuts at number 10 in the Royal Rumble. That was called by Doug. Cena goes heel by Roger. That did not happen. I said Adam Cole joins NXT and becomes NXT champion. That was half right. And then you had WWE tries to purchase NJPW, Andy.
And I think that actually,
it could have happened.
I think it's like one of those things where maybe they put feelers out because especially with the Bullet Club stuff, I think that's what happened.
So we're gonna move in just quickly. You know, we'll do probably like 2 or so for 2018. And Doug, you got both yours right. I'm curious. Will you tell us exactly what will happen in the year 2018 in the world of professional wrestling?
No, because I think mine were really softball ones last year. So I tried to go a little bit harder and a little bit bolder. My 2 predictions are going to be Daniel Bryan will wrestle for another company. It's kind of all in one. I'm going to say that he does wrestle, but it's going to be for another company, making it a bolder statement. And then second one, I think there's going to be a mass exodus of talent from WWE. I think a lot of people are going to see what Cody Rhodes did and try to duplicate it.
Interesting. Roger, do you have any kind of thoughts or predictions as well?
So let me say on Doug's second point, I agree. I think you're going to see more guys do what Cody did and try to kind of forge their own path, whether it's even guys who are already on the outs, you know, guys like Neville, for example. I could totally see him deciding to pull a Cody Rhodes and go become, you know, the big big fish in a small pond, I think is this term. My 2, and one of them is more of a hope, and one of them is a little out there, but I could see it happening at this point in time because it has to happen sooner or later. Or I shouldn't say sooner or later. It has to happen eventually. One of them is, I think CM Punk, I think his little foray into UFC and Ultimate Fighting is done. I just don't see that happening again. And I think what he said about his passion for wrestling being burnt out was a bit misleading. I think his passion to work for WWE was burnt out. I don't think that passion just goes away that quickly. And I think he is going to come back to wrestling, especially something like NJPW where they have a lot more freedom. He's got a lot of his friends over there. And, you know, if Daniel Bryan really does leave, I could totally see Daniel Bryan versus Punk being the type of headline double return show that, you know, would really make waves. The number one that I have is that I think Vince McMahon steps down as creative head. I think he eventually is going to go all in on his XFL, Alpha Entertainment, whatever you want to call it. I think he'll hand the reins over to, literally hand reins over to Stephanie McMahon and be like, you know what? You know, his hill to die on was trying to get Roman over. That's going to be his last big moment of letting him go over Brock. And I think Vince says, okay, I've done it for a long time. It's still in the family, so it's not just worried about it sold off because Stephanie will obviously do this until she's too old. But I think Vince is done as head of creative.
So my 2 are they're more wrestler related. Number 1, Roman Reigns turns heel. I'm gonna say he's gonna turn heel in some capacity. He is gonna go heel, and not a like the fans are booing him more. I'm saying he is gonna come out and be the bad guy. So Roman Reigns turns heel. What you're giving me a look, Andy? What's that look for?
What?
Is that a softball?
I think so.
Do you guys?
I think that's not a softball. I think that's insane. And, well, pause. I think it's insane unless it happens at Mania. I don't see it happening.
And Doug?
I think it's just going to be a continuation of what it is. They're just going to let him be Roman, where he's not going to be a heel. He's not going to be a face, but he'll be Roman.
All right. And then my second one, I'm going to continue with the NXT bandwagon. I'm going to say Dalton Castle leaves Ring of Honor for NXT. That one is not a softball because he's the Ring of Honor champion right now. Now, Adam Cole, I totally get like that was something where he had just dropped the title, so it was like, oh yeah, he probably is going to come to NXT. Dalton Castle just won the title, but I think that Dalton Castle will come to NXT and not win the championship.
Does he keep his character?
I I think it will be a form of the character. I don't think that he had another name in I don't think he was ever in WWE. I don't know if he ever even had a tryout. But Dalton Castle will come probably with a name or a very similar name, similar character, and he will be in NXT. And Andy, you have 2 predictions. What are yours?
I just want to make sure he wasn't in WWE. Yeah, he wasn't. Well, I actually have I have a weird one because I think that I think the network itself, it needs upgrades, and I think that there's going to be some major upgrades that they actually have to the WWE network, and I wouldn't be surprised if they did something like either add 1080p content where you pay a little bit extra for, or they actually have the independent stuff actually put on there. So I think that there's going to be some major upgrades done to the network in regards to either upgrading it to 1080p or even, well, I don't think they're going to do 4K, but at least the 1080p. And also, I believe that they'll have something else, like either at house shows or have, like they add Ring of Honor, something like that. They're going to do something along those lines. And I think it's something that they have to do in order to, be more successful. And I actually think that's where all the XFL games will end up being, is actually on the network. The other thing, there's hopeful things that I hope happen. I hope that NXT actually is on TV finally. They were on USA and they actually did surprising numbers. They almost did, I think, 1 million people actually watched it, which was surprising. And I think that that'll be something that they're going to have to eventually push, is that they'll have NXT on TV. But I also think it's going to be all about NXT. I think that they're going to have either some type of TV deal in the United States, and I think that they'll actually have another takeover show because they're only doing like five or six a year. I think they're going to add another one. Yeah, I think they're going to add another one. So it'd be like every other month they have a show, because I think they need to. But I think that they won't do it on a Saturday. They'll do it again on a Wednesday. So then that show will be Wednesday night, or even possibly do a Saturday night thing again when there's not a pay-per-view the following day, just to see how the numbers do, because I think that that'll tell you, hey, let's move our pay-per-views to Saturday. So, and I don't think WWE is going to do that, but if NXT did that and they did really good numbers, I think we'll see some changes with NXT. So I think basically it'll be major changes with NXT.
Interesting. And then the last thing that we should end with is a couple of winners for some of the big matches this year. In particular, we have Royal Rumble coming up. And we will do a Royal Rumble special, of course, like we always do, but or like we have done in the past. This year, though, early on, Doug, who are you picking for the Royal Rumble winner?
Champions, by the way, men and women.
Oh, yeah, actually, we should throw out there. It is the women's one as well. So, Doug, why don't we do both? You do the men and the women.
Okay. Winner for the men. I'm going to go with somebody that's actually in the Rumble match this year. As in years past, I've seemed to have picked somebody who wasn't announced for the Rumble, and then lo and behold, didn't show up. So this year, guaranteed he is in the Rumble, and that's going to be Nakamura. As for the women, I think, and I want to say that this is the wrong thing to do. But if Ronda Rousey is in the Rumble, I think it's going to be Ronda Rousey.
I hope she's not. I really, really hope she's not. But in this case, I'll tell you what I think. I think it actually is going to be Nakamura and Asuka are the winners. And I think that'll be a big deal because they'll say Japanese, expansion or whatever, invasion, if you want to use that. But I think Asuka is going to tear it up. I think that when she wins the Rumble, if she faces Alexa, she's going to put on a match of the year easily candidate. And I think with Nakamura, I believe that he'll face AJ Styles and it'll be one of the best matches at WrestleMania. In fact, I think that this match, they'll put it on like third or fourth because they don't want Triple H versus whoever and Roman Reigns versus whoever and John Cena, whoever. They want to have that later. So they're going to put him early because of it. And this will be the shock. I think AJ will actually lose to Nakamura at WrestleMania, being the champion. So, but that's my predictions on what I think will happen.
I would love for Nakamura to win the Royal Rumble. I really would. I mean, I really, really would. But my heart and my brain disagree here because it's a coronation, folks. We've seen it since the moment Brock was slated to win against Goldberg. It's Roman Reigns. Like, I hope I'm wrong. I mean, I legitimately hope, and I never say this because I always want to get the predictions right. Gosh, I hope I'm wrong, but I think Roman wins. I think they put it back in Philly for a reason. I thought before maybe we'd see a Shield heel turn, but with Ambrose out, I don't think that's really probably going to happen at Mania anymore, where the Shield just destroys Lesnar. So Roman will be continuing to push as, exactly like Doug said. I'm not a good guy. I'm not a bad guy. I'm just the guy. Roman wins. Women's one, Asuka. To me, that's the logical move. They always push the big one, so Nia Jax will always get how's someone going to throw her over the top? So it'll be more impressive when Asuka eliminates her last. But I don't. Ronda Rousey has no business winning this Rumble, and that'd be stupid if they do. Ellsworth shouldn't win this. I know he's not with the company, but a man could always win the first ever Women's Royal Rumble. So I'm going to say the smart move is to keep the undefeated Asuka winning the first Women's Royal Rumble. She moves on to take that title from Bliss, and all is right with the world.
I 100% agree with Roger. I have Roman and Asuka. Those are the ones that will win the Royal Rumble.
Really? I hate Roman Reigns.
Yeah.
I just can't stand him.
Do we want to do a Money in the Bank? It'll be even harder this year because, although Doug Nostradamus.
I was going to say, you mean, do we want Doug to pick, and then we all smartly agree with Doug?
Okay, fine. I guess we got to wait because Doug could have changed his thoughts. I know he picked Sammy. So, Roger, who are you thinking?
What does Doug think? Yeah, it's interesting. So I guess you kind of have to predict WrestleMania, right? I predict Roman coming out as champion. And I think AJ might walk out champion. I don't know. SmackDown's a little bit hard to pick. Is Raw? It's a Raw pay-per-view this year, if I'm correct, right?
No, it's combined. It is.
So it's back to being a split brand.
Yep.
It is a split brand pay-per-view. So the question now kind of becomes, and the question I have, in order to be able to predict this now, am I predicting a Raw one and a SmackDown one and a women's for both too?
Let's just do.
Are we going to have 4 Money in the Bank matches, or are we having 2 Money in the Bank matches where both, like the Rumble, where it's both Raw and SmackDown representatives, but only one person gets the case?
It's got to be 2, right?
Yeah, it has to be 2.
Just 1 and 1. 1 men and 1 women would be my guess. Although the women one might be a complete dart throw. Like it who knows with what they could do with any of the titles. But the men's one, I'm interested in just because you have Raw or SmackDown. So, and it's normally a heel-driven match. So, you could pick a Kevin Owens or a Sami Zayn and it would make sense. But on the Raw side of things, you could have Braun Strowman, for example. I mean, Braun wouldn't need it, but Braun could theoretically win that, or Finn Balor, So there's a lot of people in the upper mid-card you could choose. So, Roger, who do you think would win the Raw or SmackDown men's Money in the Bank?
I mean, subject to change, obviously. If I had to throw, and I'm really just throwing a dart right here, I think I'd go with Finn Balor. I think he's someone who needs that shot in the arm. He's not doing anything. I don't even think he'll have a good WrestleMania, match. Strowman will be feuding with Hunter, who had the big, I get to beat Hunter at Mania, so I don't think he needs the Money in the Bank. And, he's always going to be over by just being big and doing destructive things. I think it's Finn Balor. Maybe they do a repeat of Seth Rollins being the Money in the Bank while Roman's champion, so they build some tension there. I don't know. I'm going to say Finn Balor, but it's with almost no confidence at this point.
Andy?
Oh, boy. This is a tough one.
Everything's a tough one.
Anyways, joke from last.
Yeah, I know.
This is toughy. I wasn't sure who to pick on this because there's, I need to know, if it's combined, I think you're gonna have to go with someone on Raw. So, narrow it down. You're gonna have really Finn Balor is the only one. There's really nothing else right now.
Really?
I think that's what you have to do. Or if you bring someone up from NXT, and you could possibly see Adam Cole come up. I think that would be a mistake, but you could possibly see it depending on what Vince thinks.
So do you, Finn Balor, then, huh?
I'm going to have to go with Finn because if it's combined, you go with Finn because you can have Finn and you're going to have Shelton Benjamin in it because, you just have to. And in fact, I'm going to say something that you guys are going to be like, I hope this is not the case, but I'm going to call one thing about Money in the Bank this year. There will be a third Money in the Bank match for the tag team titles.
It's just going to be 5 Money in the Bank matches the whole pay-per-view.
No, I think what will happen, actually, that would be horrible, but I think there will be 3 matches. You'll have men's, women's, and tag team. And I think with the tag team, that'll be the one, because you got to have Shelton Benjamin in it. And you can't, the only way to put him in a Money in the Bank ladder match is, well, you have a tag team one. And I think that's what will be the big thing.
Well, we
And
got 8 months or so before we have Money in the Bank. So
I think we'll
things
have
can
those
change.
3. And maybe a 205 live one, but hopefully they don't. That's, I think having 4 would be, 3 is good. 2 is a lot, but 3, or you know what? They could just have 8 matches. 205
So,
live.
This is not lockdown.
Yeah.
Stop this.
So, Money in the Bank winner, I'm going to say it has to be from Raw, in my opinion. I think that they're going to have to do that because it's got to be somebody to take it off Roman to make him sympathetic if they don't turn him heel. And in my opinion, if they're doing that, the best person is Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe winning the Money in the Bank briefcase. He's not the type of person that's going to walk around with it all the time like some of the other people did. But having him with the briefcase and then coming and striking, not doing a lot of lead ups, not doing a lot of teases, but literally all he does is he wins that. And then, like Survivor Series, he just walks in. Roman just went through hell. He says, I'm cashing in. Kina clutch. He wins.
Well, I would
Walks
only
out
agree with you if Roman Reigns is the champion and Money in the Bank, and that match is on before Roman's match.
Roman Reigns will be champion. I can
Yeah.
almost guarantee.
You know what? I want to throw a prediction out there. He's going to get another wellness policy. He'll get a 60-day, and he will not get the championship. And he'll miss WrestleMania. So Roger, please go to Rome. I'm just asking.
And then Doug, Nostradamus.
Oh,
Nostradamus.
Nostradamus. I see, and this is where I get into that. I think this year is very difficult to choose because I don't think anybody has been set up like before, where you could really see it in Corbin and you could really see it in Ambrose when I predicted those guys. And like I said, with my bold prediction for 2018, with the mass exodus of people leaving WWE, I have a lot of the mid-carder people that you're talking about leaving, possibly thinking about leaving WWE. I don't know if Samoa Joe is going to be there anymore. I don't know if Finn Balor is going to be there anymore. It's very hard to tell. I want to go with my prediction from a year ago of Money in the Bank. I want to say Sami Zayn's going to win. I think it would be a perfect setup because even if you don't have, I think it would just be that ultimate kind of destruction of friendship is you have Kevin Owens thinking Sammy's going to help him win the Money in the Bank, but then you have Sammy walking away with it. I think that would be a good storyline. I think it'd be a good way to build up Sami Zayn, who needs it. I see where everybody else is coming from with Balor. Balor needs a push, and what better way to give him a push than letting him win Money in the Bank? But at the same time, Vince is so far down on Balor. It's going to be hard, I think, to convince Vince to let him have the briefcase. Same thing, though, with Sammy is I don't see them wanting to give Sammy a push. Joe could be a legitimate person to take it. It's too difficult without knowing how many matches there are going to be or what the setup for Money in the Bank is going to be this year. That it's too I don't know what the best word for it is. It's just it doesn't. I can't make sense of it. I cannot see. I'm going to go with the magic 8-ball answer of ask me again later.
So Sami Zayn.
So Sami Zayn.
Yeah.
All right.
And by the way, if you do get this, I'm going to just point this out. We're going to have to promote it more and more and be like, he can predict everybody who's going to win the Money in the Bank match. And then the betting odds, we'll put it out there. Then they'll be all of a sudden sway as soon as the show's released. Like, oh, crap. Well, he picked this, so he must be right.
It's going to be like 2 for the Money, where we just bring Doug on and talk about his Money in the Bank predictions.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
Doug, in 2025, who's going to win Money in the Bank?
So that's that's our awards that we do for the year. Doug, of course, was able to give us his awards before joining us. Then we do our predictions. We talk about what we did for 2017, what we're doing for 2018. So
Yeah,
that's
it's-
Hey, can I ask you guys one question? And I know we love to do predictions, but like overall sense, I think most of us consider 2017 a bit of a down year, shall we say, for WWE. Going forward, do you think 2018 is better or worse than 2017 was?
I think 2018 will be a big deal, and I think it'll be a lot of industry stuff with wrestling. I think you're going to see something. I think you're going to see a couple companies combine, whether or do like a partnership. I think WWE and Ring of Honor could do something, or even WWE and not Defy Wrestling. We'll just say that is Defy or Defiant. Defiant Wrestling, something like that, where they partner up with them and they're also on the network. I think that's going to be a big deal. I think we're going to see something along those lines happen, and I think also WWE is going to actually realize that NJPW is the real deal, and I think that's going to be one of the bigger things that happen. But yeah, so that's why I think that 2018 will be a way better year than what 2017 was.
2018 for me, the only way it'll be good is if they have good pay-per-views, and it has to be something that we leave talking about. And if the pay-per-view, if there's nothing on there that we go, oh yeah, that was pay-per-view, yeah, gender retained again, if it's something like that where, this year it'd be Roman, be like, yeah, Roman retained again, he overcame the odds, and there's nothing for a setup, then no, I'm not going to be happy. Then I think 2018 will be an even further down year. It won't be gender, but it'll be, be Roman, it'll be same old stuff. But if you were to ask me right now, I would say I think that 2018 has the ability to be a better year, and I would say if this year was a C, I think 2018 could be a C+.
I'm going to say for the wrestling industry, I think 2018 will be a better year. I think New Japan Wrestling will expand more into the United States and become a legitimate contender to the WWE. As for the WWE, though, I think that they are on a platform of contentness, that they just don't care about becoming better. They've got the people's money. They're going to get people's money, and they just accept it. That they can just be successful despite failing. And I think it's going to be another one of those years. Hopefully they have learned from the gender experience and never to do that again. But this is WWE, and I think it'll be better just because I don't think they'll ever put gender as the main champion anymore. But they're still trying to build them up as a legitimate threat in this U.S. title match tournament that I wonder what is going through their minds legitimately.
I just really wanted to ask this question so I can say that gender will never be champion again. Because literally 2018 will be better because gender won't be champion. Because that piece of crap will never, ever, 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 ever see the heavyweight championship again. That was it. I just wanted to have one last gender rant.
So what's going to happen is that 2018 is going to be a great year, and then they're going to have a show on Christmas Day for SmackDown. What's going to happen? Gender's going to be champion, and Roger's going to be like, Christmas is ruined. They screwed up Christmas because they gave him the championship.
So just so we're clear, if this happens, I blame you. I hold you personally responsible, and I'm not responsible for what happens after that.
Oh, crap. I'll be in hiding. Along with everyone else. They're like, he said this a year ago. I'm just pointing this out now. Boo this man. But yeah, I think 2018, it's going to be a fun year, and a lot of cool things for the show as well that we'll be discussing here, and we'll just go on from there. So anyway, so that's all the time we have for this special. If you're into the Twitter, you follow the show at AuthMark86. I want to thank 86 Productions for hosting and editing the podcast. And I want to thank all of our listeners for taking the time to download and listen to the show. And for Doug Hahn, Roger Cave, and Aaron Hughes, I am Andrew Hughes. And until next time, we'll see you in the ring.